Hey guys, welcome back to a page in the chapter, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Paige and today we are talking about the best spooky season books that there are. So I was just going to do a spooky season recommendations video. That was the original plan for this, and then I ended up with a super long list of books. And then I categorized them into genres. And then I realized that this is basically just an ultimate guide to spooky season recs. I have books that I read years ago that have made this list. I have books that I've read recently that have made this list. Like, it is just kind of an all-time spooky season recommendations video. And is basically just all you need to know about spooky season recs. There should be something in here for everyone, and hopefully there's some books in here that you forgot about or didn't even know existed, and so this will be particularly useful. If you guys like the sound of this video and you would like to stick around and see more from me, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. I upload every single Wednesday and every single Sunday. Also, do please feel free to check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Page in Chapter so that you can see what I'm reading and how I'm reviewing it in real time. Now, I would recommend that you grab a cup of tea, a cozy drink, preferably in a cozy autumnal mug as I have, because I think we might be here a while. We have a lot of books that we need to get through today, a lot of different genres, a lot of different categories. I think you might want to have a cup of tea for this one, I'm not gonna lie, but if you can bear with me through it all, then I think you'll find some great book recs in here for whatever mood or whatever atmosphere you are looking for this spooky season, whether it be scary, whether it be dark, whether it be atmospheric or cozy or wholesome or heartwarming, whatever you want, I got it, it's in this video. And so without further ado, let's get on into the ultimate guide to spooky season recs by moi, obviously. So the first category that we are going to get into is probably the genre that you would expect most from me, and that is the romance section of this video. Starting off with a newer book to me, the first romance book that I think you will need in the autumnal season is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. If you want Gilmore Girls meets Halloween town setting with a fake dating trope and genuinely clever writing, then this is the book for you. This follows our main characters Marielle and Oz, and Marielle is prophesied to be an incredibly powerful witch, but she is not really seeing the benefits of that. She cannot control magic or do magic at all. She's terrible at it. And one day when she is trying to summon Flower, I think, she gets the words mixed up and she accidentally summons Oz, who is a demon, and Oz cannot leave until she makes a deal for her soul with him. So these two are stuck together until they can figure out how the hell he's gonna leave, and as such end up having to fake date so that the whole situation doesn't look completely absurd and she doesn't have to tell her super powerful family that she has messed up the most basic of spells. This is super cute, genuinely light-hearted and fun and adorable. The way the author is able to write such a complicated story but then weave herself and these characters out of some of the holes that she's dug them into is genuinely clever, and you can tell a lot of thought went into this plot. The forced proximity is chef's kiss. As far as fake dating goes, this did have it. It wasn't like the best example of fake dating in the entire world. It is more forced proximity than it is fake dating, but it still worked really, really well. And as I said, the setting in this was just amazing. If you really liked the X-Hex for the setting, then this has all the same atmosphere and vibes and cozy, adorable, witchy town that multiple magical creatures live in and all coexist in. This has that with a slightly thicker, more detailed plot and better development for the romance than the X-Hex has. So highly recommend this for setting vibes. I could not put together a video like this without talking about this book. That is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. You've probably seen this, you've probably read it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because it is just the best thing to ever happened to me. It is tied with Fourth Wing for my favourite book of the year. This follows our main character, Florence, and she has the ability to see ghosts. After going through a terrible breakup, Florence no longer believes in love, but she is ghost writing as a romance novel. Her new editor is refusing to give her any leeway on the book, and he needs the book ASAP, but she's really struggling to write it because she no longer believes in happy endings or giving these two characters a happy ending. However, when her new editor shows up on her door as a ghost, she is kind of forced to confront a lot of the feelings that she has been feeling, and honestly it's just the most heartwarming, incredible book. If you want a story with strong family dynamics about learning to love again with ghosts that will both heal your heart and break your heart at the same time, then this is 100% the book that you need to be reading this autumnal season. It has beautiful lyrical writing. There's so many different elements to this plot. If you're here because you want strong family cozy vibes, this has that. If you're here because you want a well-rounded amazing romance where you're genuinely not entirely sure where it's going to go and it's actually a new format of writing romance, then this is for you. If you want to read a well-constructed genre-bending piece of work that brings together romance, literary fiction and fantasy, then this is the book for you. Like, it ticks all of the boxes and I think you need to be reading it. It's been a while since I've got to talk about this book. There was a period on my YouTube channel where I talked about this book in every single video, and now it's back, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I haven't seen too many people talking about this book in recent cozy months, probably because it has been out for a while and was so popular that most people have probably read it. But if you are new to the reading community, then this 100% has to be a book that you get to in these colder months. It is so heartwarming. So this follows our main character, Addie LaRue, and she in 18th century France accidentally makes a deal with the devil so that she won't have to be forced into marrying someone, and the deal that she makes is that she will get to be free. However, the results of this deal ends up being more of a curse in that she is not remembered by anybody. She cannot say her name because that will count as leaving her mark on a place, and anytime she leaves a room or leaves the eye line of people, then they will immediately forget that they saw her or knew her or anything like that. Cut to New York in 2014, and Addie walks into a bookshop for the second time and finds that the shopkeeper Henry remembers exactly who she is, which leads these two interact a lot more because this is the first person in 200 years that has remembered exactly who she is, and it is just very cozy. This book has whimsical, beautiful writing. It has a threat looming over these two and definitely a deeper plot. I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been a sequel to this because I feel like the opportunity is there to explore particularly the character of Luce a lot more, and I know a lot of people are a big fan of Luce as a character. And also I think what is particularly good about this book is it really properly explores this curse that is placed on Addie. It is not just thrown in there for fun or a reason for these two characters to be introduced. It is a very character driven novel about Addie LaRue and how she struggles with this curse following her through this 200-year period. You have flashbacks and you have present day, really exploring the different situations where this curse has become a problem and how much it genuinely affects her day-to-day life. And then the romance element, whilst being incredibly developed and beautiful and a strong element to this book, I wouldn't say it's the central element. Addie LaRue is the star of this book and V.E. Schwab makes sure that you know that. My next romance book is less fantasy romance and more contemporary romance, and that is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. This follows our main character Phoebe, and she is a PhD student studying crime literature, and she is also just genuinely obsessed with true crime. When she goes to Florida for the summer to help clean out her father's belongings after he has passed away and is forced to confront mourning a father that she didn't really know or didn't really have a relationship with whilst cleaning out this house, she also ends up interacting with her father's next door neighbour, who Phoebe believes is a serial killer. This is a really fun, fairly short little rom-com that will get you in the mood for Halloween and the spooky season. It deals with true crime but not in a particularly scary way, and again has very cute family elements because not only is Phoebe having to confront feelings towards her father, this then brings her closer with her mother and her brother while she's also learning to trust and love Sam, and has slight academia vibes because Phoebe is a PhD student and her dissertation does play a fairly big role in the story. We do see her getting to be a student. So if you want those cozy school vibes, then this also has those too. It has something for everybody and is just a really fun, light-hearted tale if that's what you want this autumn and you don't want anything actually true crime or actually scary, but you want to read someone reading true crime. This is that. The next book on this list I don't actually own a physical copy of yet, but it's criminal and I will be, and that is From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. My favourite Mariana Zapata book that I have read. I haven't read many, but they're not normally a hit for me, and this book really was. This is kind of the OG figure skater romance. It follows our main character who is a failed single skater and needs a partner and is forced to partner with the guy that she absolutely hates so that she actually has a chance at winning something. And if you like the cutting edge movies, then this is the cutting edge meets Mariana Zapata slow burn. It is just, it does all of the right things. The enemies to lovers is, again, like the slow burn about it is beautifully handled. You are really like squealing and kicking your feet and rooting for these characters by the end of it. The male main character in this book has become one of my many book boyfriends because he is absolutely animal obsessed and it is adorable. And I think what Mariana Zapata really gets right is characters who actually fit together and bring out the best in each other and work together. Or like if they were real people, then you could believe that they would also last and stay together and be attracted to each other. And I really enjoyed this book. It has the autumnal wintry atmosphere. If you're someone who kind of wants to start getting excited about winter already, then this is a good one because it is ice skating. But then it's also just autumnal, colder months, general vibes, and it's just cozy. It's two people who hate each other but actually have so much in common, dealing with a lot of stuff outside of the relationship as well. So heartwarming and gushy and slow burn and beautiful. So definitely recommend this one. The next romance book I have to share with you is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This follows our main character Ari, and she is a weather girl for a local station, but her bosses, the two people who run the station, are constantly fighting with each other and causing a problem for everybody who works there. It is a very not pleasant place to work, and it means that Ari isn't really getting any of the career or professional development that she so wants from this person who runs the station and could genuinely further her career. So Ari and one of her colleagues, Russell, hatch a plan to get their bosses back together so that they can actually receive some career development, and this involves the two of them hanging out more and realizing that they have a lot more in common and that genuinely cute vibes between them. If you like the Netflix movie Set It Up or The Setup, whichever one is about the two assistants setting up their bosses, this has a similar plotline and you would probably really enjoy this too. What's great about this book is that it has a rainy, cozy setting. It has main characters who look genuinely like normal people and are not these 8-packed, rippled bodies that are in most romance books, and it has absolutely gorgeous mental health rep. If you are looking for something to read on a rainy day that's gonna feel like a hot cup of tea, then this is that book. And then the final romance book that I have to share with you in this section of the Ultimate Guide to Autumnal Books is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. And I would just like to take a minute to talk about how much prettier this edition is, the self-pubbed edition is, than the cover on the trad pubbed. Like, honey, why? I literally cannot buy the rest of the series now because I hate the new covers so much. But anyway, that's not the point. If you want a book that feels like Red Taylor's version and has the same atmosphere as Gossip Girl and feels like Champagne Problems by Taylor Swift, then this is that book and you need to be getting on it, especially now that it is trad pubbed and not just self pubbed, and it is much easier and cheaper to get. I don't even want to talk about how much money I paid for this book. This follows our main characters Magnolia and BJ, and they are like Upper East Side elite rich people, and it is very much a character driven novel about these very rich people. Again, it's very Gossip Girl, but without the added plot driver of there being a Gossip Girl type character causing drama. If Gossip Girl was just about the love lives of the super rich kids, this is kind of what that book would be about, but make it equally heartbreaking. It feels very Blair and Chuck, this book. We follow Magnolia and BJ. We see flashbacks of their relationship in the past. We see them now when they are just friends but very clearly yearning for each other. It is totally right person, wrong time, just keep missing each other and cannot get on the same page, and it is beautiful. It will grip you more than you think it will. I can't say that I thought that a character driven book about spoiled rich kids finding love would hurt me or grip me as much as it did, but I adore this book. I cannot wait to reread it. At the moment I'm not inclined to pick up the rest of the books in this series because I just love the way that this book ended, and I'm not prepared to continue reading Magnolia and BJ's story yet, but one day I will be. This has Gossip Girl vibes, feels like Red Taylor's version in a book, also feels like Champagne Problems in a book. Like, the atmosphere is just beautiful, and if you're really looking for something that is just going to feel incredibly cozy because it plays on the Taylor Swift elements and the Gossip Girl elements that kind of bring coziness the way rewatching or re-listening to that media does. So it has that really cozy, feels like talking to an old friend vibe, but is also kind of heartbreaking in a way that sometimes I think you just want in the colder months. This is that. And I do have a vlog reading this if you are interested. Just a tiny little plug there. With the romance books out of the way, the next category is the fantasy category. So this is books that, whilst they might still have a romance element, fall more on the fantasy side or are just complete fantasies. The first book on this list is again one that people haven't talked about, or I haven't seen people talk about in a very long time, but I still love this book. I will still sing this book's praises, and I think this book feels like a very autumn day, and that is House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. I read this years ago, like I'm pretty sure I read this in 2020. It's one of the first couple of books that I talked about on this channel, and this is a dark and atmospheric 12 Dancing Princesses retelling with this misty and atmospheric seaside like setting. It feels very, very autumnal. I honestly would describe this as like October and November. Like, it just has that same feeling to it, and I'm going to use the word atmospheric 1,000,001 times when talking about this book. I think it's really what it gets right. And again, this is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, so whilst there is a slight romance element, the fantasy, the magic system / mystery, and the darker tone really take precedent over the romance element in this book. So if you're not really a romance reader, you can still read this and very much enjoy it. So this follows the daughters that belong to a royal family in this dark atmospheric place, and it follows the 12 princesses, and slowly they are mysteriously dying, and we follow our main character Annalie, and she keeps having these like ghostly apparitions and ghostly dreams, and it follows her getting to the bottom of the mystery of why her sisters keep mysteriously dying. If you like retellings and super ghosty, dark, atmospheric settings, then this is the book for you. This is honestly the blueprint for the word atmospheric. So cannot recommend this enough as a slightly darker read, but it is still young adult, so it's not, and I have to stress this enough, it's really not scary or particularly spooky. It just perfectly sets the vibe for the build up to Halloween and getting in the mood for the spooky season. It's kind of more, it's like a Twitches level of spooky. That's the vibe here. The next book in the fantasy section is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This is book 1 in the Regency Fairy Tales series, and again, whilst this does have a slight romance element, I would class this much more as a fantasy because the magic system and the world building takes more of a precedent over the romance, in my opinion. So this follows our main character Theodora, and she lost half of her soul to a fairy when she was a child, which means that now as a grown-up she is really struggling to navigate Regency era England because she doesn't really understand social convention or how to navigate this social setting. This is super cozy. If you have read Legends and Lattes and now you are looking for what to read next, it has to be the Regency Fairy Tale series. This is also very cozy, arguably low stakes if you think gaining a soul is low stakes, and just a very short, adorable, cozy autumnal read. And so yeah, if you are looking for something post Legends and Lattes, this is that book. And then this next book is another recommendation that if you have finished Legends and Lattes and you would like something similar, this is that book, and that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is very similar in plot to House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, but in my opinion is cozier. I can't justify that with anything meaningful other than this book had lines in it that I wanted to annotate in a way that House in the Cerulean Sea didn't, and I think this is the better example of the plot. So this follows our main character Mika, and she is a witch, and she belongs to a society of witches where they kind of believe that witches should meet regularly at these like society meetings, but witches should never be allowed to be in close proximity with each other. So when Mika is asked through the internet to go to this like magical boarding house and teach these 3 orphans how to control their magic, she very much has to keep it a secret from the society that these 3 witches are living together when they can't even control their powers yet. It is quite a, or is seen as quite a dangerous situation for these witches to be in. But Mika decides to stick around at this boarding school setting and teach these 3 young witches how to control their magic, and in the process grows closer with the grumpy librarian who is kind of these girls' guardian. It has the found family trope, it has grumpy librarian, grumpy sunshine romance, witches and a magical system that is just great, and again kind of this growing closer with the family that you had before through this found family element, and it is just so incredibly cozy. Again, is pretty low stakes and vibey, and is a perfect alternative to Legends and Lattes or House in the Cerulean Sea if you are looking for something similar to that. This next book is probably the most fantasy of the fantasies in this video, and that is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. This is a little bit of a chunk stub, but it is so well worth it. This is a historical fantasy looking at a trio of witches who are forced to interact again after they have been estranged from each other due to like magical happenings that are going on and also political happenings that are going on. This book very beautifully incorporates history from the Salem witch trials into this book, and is a very feminist take on the Salem witch trials and witchcraft in general. This was one of my favourite books the year that I read it. I just thought it was so beautifully and cleverly crafted. If I'm going to commit to a slightly chunkier fantasy book, then I do particularly like it when it brings in history and commentary on the real world, and I think this handled it really well, whilst also being girl power, feminist movement, not necessarily found family, but like reconnecting with family in a very witchy, historical, cozy setting. And honestly, so good. Could not recommend this book enough. If you are looking for a cozy fantasy, then this is the epitome of cozy fantasies, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I think this is Erin Morgenstern's best book. I was really not a fan of The Starless Sea, but I loved this one. So if you've read The Starless Sea based on all the hype surrounding it and didn't like it, don't be put off from this book, because I think this is the most beautiful, again atmospheric but in a different way to House of Salt and Sorrow. You have this very eerie circus setting that is also very inviting, but there's also a dark undertone running throughout this circus, and I don't know, it just messes with your head in the most gloriously cozy of ways. So this follows a night circus which will just appear one day and will only be open at night time, and then it will just disappear without a trace to go to its next location the next time. And we follow a host of different characters in this book, different people who belong to the circus and serve a different role in the circus, and then someone who is visiting the circus. And there's kind of threads of different storylines running throughout this book, but my favourite one is obviously the romance one that is running through it. But there's so many different elements and characters and storylines to this book that if you don't like romance in your fantasies, then that's okay. Like, there will be enough for you to get from this book, and the setting plays such a big part in the story and is so central to the story that I don't think you should be put off if you don't enjoy romance in your fantasy books. And then to bring this fantasy section of this video to a close, we have A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. If you want a traditional school setting fantasy with something a little more to it, then this is the book for you. This is a very setting driven book about a school that kind of throws monsters and demons at its pupils. There's no real teachers, they are learning to survive the school from the school themselves, and the only way to graduate the school is to survive it. Basically the school's going to do everything it can to kill you and you just have to survive it. It's like a sentient being, the school. And this follows our main character Elle as she is being sent to the school, and she has to try to navigate it and form alliances and learn who to trust and who not to trust, because everyone is just trying to make it out of the school alive, which can lead to tension within the cohorts. If you want a magical school setting but you also kind of want something a little bit darker and a little bit weirder, then this is that over a traditional school setting fantasy. It also kind of has found family tropes in it, in that parents aren't really a thing of this school. There's not much interaction that could go on with original families and parents, and so through the alliances that are formed and friendships that are then formed as a result of those alliances, then it is a little bit of a found family trope. And I think the main selling point of this book is that the setting is so alive and integral to the story that it is just completely captivating. I haven't read anything similar to this stories in the years since I've read it. I still need to continue with the series and I just haven't got around to it yet, but I just find it so captivating, and I loved the way that this book ended, and I just think everyone should be reading it. I think it has absolutely perfect vibes for the autumnal period, and even just back to school in general. I think this works really well. And then the final category I have to talk through is just generally darker reads. I could not think of an appropriate title for this, so that's what we've gone with. A lot of these books have been lost to the triple stacking that I do on all of my bookshelves, and I am not committed enough to go through the triple stacks to find where a lot of these books are, so you're going to be seeing pictures on the screen. But the first book on this list, it could have been either in the fantasy or in the just generally darker vibes, and I went with generally darker vibes for this one, and that is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Whilst this is a sci-fi fantasy, it is also dark academia, and it tends to get missed in a lot of the dark academia discussions. But this follows our main characters Victor and Eli, and we see them in the present day when they hate each other, they are enemies, they are tracking each other down to try and kill each other. But then we also see them in the past when they were university students together and they were friends, and we follow their journey in the past as they become a little bit too manic about the science experiments that they're doing, and then they end up giving themselves powers as a result of it. And then we see them in the present day as they're trying to track each other down and kill each other. The past elements of this are honestly incredible, but then you also get to flash forward into the present day and just have some good old-fashioned warring anti-heroes content. It feels a little bit like a modern Frankenstein in the themes that it plays off, this fear of science and medicine going too far, playing around with death and being God that we shouldn't be messing around with. And then it also does have this kind of questioning of religion and criticism of religion and theme of religion just in this book in general. Basically has all of the elements that I would love about a book like this, and it is honestly a little bit on the spookier side. I find that dark academia in general tends to like make me feel quite spooky, and there's something about dark academia that just genuinely scares me a little bit. The gothic dark academia vibes of this just sell it. If this is not one of your spooky season reads, it needs to be. The next generally darker vibes book on this recommendations list is How to Kill Your Family. I was very hesitant to pick this one up, but I had a much better time with it than I was expecting to have, and I do think it is the perfect blend of like slightly spooky but not too gory or horror. So this follows our main character, and she has reasons for hating her family. I'm not going to express whether they're valid or not, but she has her reasons, and so she sets about a plan to murder all of them. Surprisingly, by the end of the book you are really rooting for her. It's a little bit alarming, but also what I really liked about this is that she is a very unreliable narrator basically, and you never really know if you can trust her version of events or what she's saying. But you follow her as she runs through all of the murders that occur and how she did them. You find out very early on that she is in prison, but she is in prison for a murder that she didn't actually commit, and so she's writing down in a diary how she actually did the real murders. It's honestly like, it's funny and it's dark at the same time. There's not going to be any true horror in this recommendations video because it's just not what I read at all. I'm not a super spooky reader. I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to my books, okay? I get slightly too invested. My brain goes all the way in. For context, when I read The Secret History, I had nightmares that I'd murdered someone for weeks. So I don't go too dark. And this honestly felt like it was giving the spooky, creeping around at night, trying to get away with something atmosphere that you might be looking for this spooky season. And it has the unreliable narrator that might like set you on edge a little bit, but it didn't feel too scary or too dark, and is definitely on the, I wouldn't say on the cozier side, but I guess that is essentially what I'm saying. But yeah, I do recommend this book, and I think it would be a fun read for the October period. The next book I'm going to talk to you about is Ace of Spades. Now this is a young adult book, but do not be put off by the fact that it is young adult, because I found it really creepy despite the fact that it is young adult. This is a young adult like thriller slash mystery book. It does it really well and doesn't read like a young adult, definitely on the older side. And we follow two main characters who are being not haunted but are being kind of threatened and trailed by Ace of Spades. So this is very much a dark Gossip Girl kind of situation. Like Gossip Girl if she was actually threatening their physical lives. I guess Gossip Girl, when you think about it, is actually very dark in and of itself, but that concept made into a thriller following these two high school students as their lives are basically being torn apart by Ace of Spades. But this kind of brings them together and they work to get to the bottom of who Ace of Spades is and why it is happening to them. It touches on some much bigger problems such as racism, particularly in educational systems, and how it is holding people of colour back from higher education and moving on. I think it deals with some very sensitive topics very well for a young adult and introducing young adult readers to these themes and these issues, but also it is just kind of spooky and does set you on edge, so definitely the vibe for the spooky season. I then wouldn't be able to make this video without talking to you about The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I am currently reading Masters of Death by Olivia Blake and I am loving it, but I haven't finished it yet, so I can't necessarily put it in a recommendations video because I don't know if I recommend it yet. But at the like 80 page mark, definitely enjoying Masters of Death and do kind of recommend it because the vibes immaculate. But the Atlas 6, if you have been hiding under a rock and you do not know what it is a dark academia book set in the Library of Alexandria, as we follow these 6 recruits as they are training to become defenders of the Library of Alexandria. And very dark academia situation. Also you have this beautiful library situation, and honestly it's just dark and weird. I don't want to give too much away about the plot or anything that happens, but all of these characters are fully fleshed out individual characters. You will have some that you love and some that you hate. They all have special powers and they all use them very differently, and it's just a very weird but well-rounded book. And so if you want something that's dark academia but also just kind of weird and darker in tone, then the Atlas 6 is that for you, and you'll learn a lot and it will be fun, and nothing is really what you think it is. This is what I really like about Olivia Blake books. They're just, you never really know what to expect about them, and so I would recommend going into the Atlas 6 if you haven't read it yet, not really knowing too much, because you're just going to enjoy it more that way. I would say this is more on the cozier side than any of the other weird dark books on this list, but definitely still weird and dark. Just slightly more on the cozier side than the others. I couldn't really talk about weird and dark without talking about Wilder Girls. This book was so big a couple years ago. Everyone was reading it. Everybody had thoughts on the ending of this book. It was kind of a Marmite book. You either loved it or you hated it. I fell on the loved it side because I'm putting it in a recommendations video. This again is a young adult book but doesn't really feel like a young adult. It's a young adult in that the characters are teenagers but the actual writing doesn't feel very young adult. So in this book we follow teenagers who are isolated on this island because of a virus that is going around, and this is like a deadly virus. I think if I remember rightly it is also kind of like a flesh-eating-y thing. This book is definitely on the gorier side. I like a little bit of gore, but if you don't then this might be one to stay away from. But it's not necessarily scary, it is just kind of spooky and gory and atmospheric. The vibes are great. This is also a sapphic story, so you know, extra fun to read. But yeah, this is another one that I would recommend going into without really knowing too much. As I said, the ending is very Marmite. I think it made sense for the book as a whole, and I liked it, but completely get why some people hate it. But if you are looking for something that's dark in tone, sapphic, all around weird, and a little bit like gory / horror, Wilder Girls is the book that you are looking for. And then finally, the last book / series that I have to share with you that I think is like weird and dark and just generally fun for the spooky season is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is a YA murder mystery, and I know that A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is kind of the one that everyone is talking about right now, but I haven't read that yet. I loved this series and I want to see people continuing to read and enjoy this series, because if you enjoyed A Good Girl's Guide to Murder then I imagine you would probably enjoy this one as well, because I really did enjoy this series. It's actually a series that I finished. Shock! I finished a series, didn't know that was possible. But this follows a group of students at Ellingham Academy, which is an elite school for particularly gifted children in whatever area they are gifted in, and it is an opportunity for them to really build on those skills. And there is a very famous mystery associated with Ellingham Academy, and our main character Stevie, her special skill that she is accepted into Ellingham for is how well she knows and understands true crime. And so her goal at this school is to try to solve the Ellingham mystery. What is particularly interesting about these books is it focuses on the Ellingham mystery, which spans the full length of the series, but you still kind of get like mini mysteries that get solved, and you get that satisfaction from each individual book. And it's just a really fun YA murder mystery that is slightly spooky but really nothing too scary, but is darker in tone than would fit into any other category. And so if you really like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and you're reading that because everyone's talking about it recently, the next one for you to check out would be Truly Devious, because this one's just super fun and I really enjoyed it. It really sets the tone for one of those dark autumnal nights. You could really dive into this book. Most of the book takes place at night, to be honest with you. It just fits the vibe so well and I highly recommend it. And so there is my ultimate guide to spooky season reads. I hope there was something in here for everybody. We had romance, we had fantasy, we had random dark energy reads. There was a mix of cozy, there was a mix of I don't know, I feel like this was a pretty well-rounded list of spooky season reads, other than the fact that horror was missing. But I cannot offer any recommendations for horror or thrillers because I just don't read them, so I wouldn't even know where to start recommending books like that. But hopefully if you're watching my channel then you read the same kind of things that I do, and so this is the ultimate guide to spooky season reads for people like us who like these kinds of books. If you guys like this video then do please let me know down in the comment section any other recommendations that match these vibes. If there's any of these books that you're going to check out, any of your thoughts on these books, and also do please feel free to hit the thumbs up button. A lot of work and energy went into this video and it would be great to know that you guys cared about it or enjoyed watching it. And if you did enjoy this video and you'd like to see more from me and you found me through this video and realised that we like exactly the same things, then do please feel free to hit that bigger subscribe button down below. I upload every single Wednesday and every single Sunday, so lots of bookish content and talking about books that you clearly like as well, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I feel like I have kept you guys for quite a while now, so I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, you're enjoying everything you are reading, and there are no reading slumps in your future, especially in this spooky season when there's so much to read. And I will see you guys for my next video. Bye guys.